welcome back to another episode of the Lab Review. We're your hosts, La Ramsey, Ari, and Britt. And tonight we're excited to have our guest, Monique Tyson, who is a legacy strategist with Light Up Your Legacy. We are glad to have you here. My first question is, for those who may not know, give us a breakdown of what legacy strategist actually is and what that means.
Okay, what that means is I help educate families and individuals about how money works. Okay, that's the first thing. I do help to create legacy plans for people to address their financial needs. I help families obtain protection in the event of a premature death. And I also help transfer wealth to future generations in an efficient manner.
So all about where the money resides.
Where the money resides. Where the money resides.
Yes.
I like it. I think that it's something that is very needed, that we don't really think outside the box beyond our regular retirement plans with our jobs and, investment and passing things along to further generations. So, my question is, I want to be able to live. And when I say live, I mean be able to live and enjoy living and still be able to plan for retirement. So how can we invest in planning for the future while also being able to live a little bit along the way?
Okay, what I will tell you is we are, right now, people that are in the accumulation phase are generally Generation Xers and millennials. In previous generations, they saved more. And so the issue is we're making the money, but we're not saving the money. And so in order to have a certain lifestyle as you approach retirement, you got to start putting some money away in your accumulation phase. And so your accumulation phase is pretty much the time that you're working before you retire, because you have money coming in, but as you retire, you will be in a distribution phase in which you are now paying out money. You're not necessarily getting the pay that you were getting while you were working.
Gotcha. So how can we balance that out? Because is there a way to save some and spend a little? How we know we've talked previously about living luxury on a budget, but how can we incorporate that along with retirement at the same time?
Well, first off, you have to decide what type of lifestyle that you would like to have.
I gotta choose
during retirement. And so you have to come up with a plan to say, I'm going to put X amount of dollars in an account. And I will tell you this, it is better to have a compounding interest-bearing account that you are going to put your money in versus just putting it in a regular savings account. You're not going to get a whole lot of bang for your buck if you think, oh, I'm just going to put $50 a month in, this savings account. It has to be in a account in which you're going to get some compound interest. And so, that's essentially what you have to do. And so it has to be a situation where you commit to say that you're going to save X amount of dollars per month in order to help you get you there and balance you out. Because a lot of times what happens, people don't save when they should save. It's easier to save earlier than it is to save late. So really what you're dealing with is an issue of time. Okay? If you start saving earlier, you may not have to use as a large chunk as you would if you start saving at 50 years old. Okay, so if you're 30, 40 years old, it doesn't have to be as much as you would if you were starting at 50. Okay, so that's the thing that, we're coming against when you're talking about balance. The earlier you start saving, the easier it will be, and it'll build discipline also. Because sometimes like I said, we're making more, but we're not saving it. People are not necessarily disciplined to save. And so then that causes the issue.
So I can still save a little and spend a little.
Yes.
Balanced. Okay.
Yes,
Now,
because you should have protection, an emergency fund, a lifestyle fund. You know, those are things that you should have, a retirement fund. So you should have all of those pockets where you save some money at.
and so your company can kind of help us to set up those sorts of accounts.
Yes.
Mhm.
Do your company like point you in the right direction of the financial institutions, or are you a financial institution yourself?
So I am an independent agent. And so essentially what that means is when I meet with people, I'm looking at the different portions of their life, like you said, for lifestyle or for retirement, or it could be long-term care. And so I'm going to go sit down with you, look at what your needs are, because everyone's needs are different. And so that's the whole point of me doing a legacy plan, because it's not just about, later on, but it's starting now to save for later on. And so I will look at the different needs that you have, and then we come up with a plan for each one of those things to help you out. And so, yes, I do actually have access to multiple companies in which I work with, because there are different needs for different people.
So I do have a question. Now,
Yes.
I know you work with more of the long-term planning, and you're equipped with multiple companies to assist, but what can people do to stop having to rely on GoFundMe for immediate
The plates, selling
Yeah.
the plates,
t-shirts?
So,
calling around to the family members. Hey, can you help? We need some money to bury Tyrone.
Going on the news.
well, again, that requires you to put a plan in place. And so when you are looking for protection, you're looking for life insurance. And so that is to protect your life in the event that you have a premature death. We don't know, when death is going to come knocking at our door. And so you have to prepare for that ahead of time. You can't wait until, you're sick. That's another issue. People wait too long. And so they try to get it, number one, when they're sick. So as I stated before, your biggest thing is time. You're going to be in better health the younger you are, and it's going to cost less the younger you are, and you will probably have less medical issues. So when you're waiting a long time to do those things, the likelihood of you having a medical issue and your age is going to be a factor in how much money you're spending monthly for those kinds of plans. So that's why I always encourage people to start as young as possible. We don't want you to have a GoFundMe or sell plates for burial, because it's affordable. It's affordable. And sometimes people just don't know. And so you have to explain things to them. Also, I will say that there are some things that are available today that may not have necessarily been available in prior generations. So, you just got to have somebody that knows what they're doing when they're setting things up for you.
That's why they need to go to Light Up Your Legacy.
Yes.
Now, do you have referrals for people that might need to do a will or those type of things? Because I think of Chadwick Boseman, who knew he was sick and didn't have a will, and that's just amazes me.
It does. I think that there are I don't know about his situation because I haven't really followed it. You have situations in where you will need a will, and then there are also situations where you will need a trust, okay? Because sometimes if you have children and they are not of age to take control of what you left them in a will, you're going to need a trust for that. Another thing is if you have children and they have disabilities, and I mean, it doesn't have to be small children. They could be adult children with disabilities. There are accounts, and people will tend to do a trust along with that account. It's called an ABLE account. And so you're able to actually set aside a certain amount of money, but there's some other intricacies to that. But yes, some of the companies that I work with do offer the service of doing wills and trusts, because they know that there are people that are getting protection for their life, that they may have some people that, you know, are around them in their family or whatever the case may be, that may need things in legal writing. One of the companies, they even allow you to specify if you want to leave something to a organization or something like that. So yes.
Now, one of the things you hit on earlier is something I actually wanted to talk about, which is the long-term care insurance. For me, I previously worked in hospice setting, and some of the individuals had long-term care insurance. I'd never heard of it before working in that environment. It was something that was new to me, but of a great benefit to those families to be able to provide, to have someone that could come into the home, provide care for the individuals while they're working, and so that they can carry on somewhat of a normal routine while still being assured that they have someone there to care for their loved ones. So can you kind of talk about long-term care insurance, how people can qualify for that, and just give us some information about that as well?
Okay, long-term care insurance is essentially an insurance that people use in the event that they're going to get sick. Generally, long-term care might be over 3 months. And so what ends up happening is it will help to offset the costs that families will have to pay out of pocket, because a lot of times people will think, well, they have health insurance, it's going to pay for their stay at a long-term care or a rehabilitation facility. Now, any place that, you know, a nursing home, rehabilitation facilities, hospice care, and it can also serve to offset the cost when a person is getting home health care. And so you have many more people today wanting to actually stay in the home, but they still need the services. And so if it's a person that knows about long-term health care, or they've had to experience taking care of a loved one and it was very difficult, they know, okay, let me see about getting a long-term care policy. Well, with long-term care, there are standalone policies, and then which are more expensive, and especially if you wait later to get that in life. But long-term care policies can also be attached to permanent life policies. Okay, so you have a situation where you can get a standalone. Usually people who are very wealthy will get that. Or you will have, say, for instance, a permanent life policy, and you attach the long-term care as a rider to that policy. Some people don't get riders because they think they're not going to need it and they don't want to pay the additional money. But I can tell you, if we look around in the world, there are people, they're not old, they're young. Okay. And the likelihood of being sick with something is greater than it not happening at all. And so you have a policy like that to keep you safe in the event that something happens. Like there's another young lady I know. Her mom has multiple sclerosis. She worked for 30 years, retired, but she didn't necessarily have a long-term care policy. And as I stated before, people think they have health care or Medicare and it's going to pay for that, and it doesn't. So what has ended up happening, her sister and mom, they actually all have to work together to pay for her assisted daily living expenses. And so that means that she has a nurse or someone that has to come in, to take care of her on a regular basis. Same thing, I have a neighbor, her mother has Alzheimer's. And so she has to pay for those things. People think it's easy. Oh, well, or a lot of times you'll see people, they think, I have a large family. I got a lot of brothers and sisters. And it usually ends up landing on the
one person.
girl. Okay. And
or the youngest girl.
or the youngest girl. But it usually ends up landing on somebody. And, you have to, it can be very tiring and it will burn you out. You love your family member, but it's a great thing to have because, like I said, it doesn't have to be a situation where you're old and thinking about a nursing home. It could be a young person.
And so I think that that's something that is a like a income disparity issue, I would say. Like I said, I saw it mainly with folks that had money or more money and wealth and from, more affluent communities. How can we get this information out to our folks who may not have, as much money or knowledge about these types of programs, especially with long-term care that may be in need? How can, they find out more about the desk of service that you can connect them with as well?
Man, before you answer, can I also add for those that have the money and it's more a mindset or fear?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Letitia. There sometimes people do have the money, but they just either don't know or there is a fear of actually saying you're going to need this because people think that they're going to be healthy and strong forever, but that's just not always the case. You can't predict that. And so I think if they are listening to the lab review or they go to lightupyourlegacy.com, there's some information that I can sit with them and give. And as I talk, I think your questions are really good. I think they're really valid questions that need to be asked because like a lot of times when I talk to people, they just think about death. And so those are not the only thing. People are living longer, but they're also sicker. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I think that you're right. There was a disparity with affluent people. That's why I said those standalone policies, those were really policies that people who, really had some money years ago. But now you can, like I said, attach it as a rider to a permanent policy. And then that way it will not be as expensive. Okay. And, some people have multiple policies because they serve different purposes. Somebody might have one for long-term care and to leave as legacy money for their children or whatever the case. They may have one to pay off a mortgage. There may be another one to help with their wife. If there's a wife or a husband that's left behind to help them offset that income that's going to need to be replaced. So yes.
I had a question. When you mentioned children, do your company deal with the 529 plans? Is that what it's called? Like the college plans or saving for children's future? Or
yes. You can always do a 529 plan. Also, you can do index universal life plans. Like that's one of the things for my daughter. And if I start saving, a reasonable amount of money, she will have a reasonable amount as she gets older that she will be able to take out of it and it will be tax-free.
Right.
And so, yes, the 529s, yes, but also there's some other items that, you can get for children now as well. Like I said, there are some things that are available today that were not necessarily always available.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this has been some great informative information. We're going to take a quick break and then we're going to come back with a little more from Monique Tyson with Light Up Your Legacy.